Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name's Dr. Steve Simpson, and I work as an elite performance coach. Every week we have this webinar. It's open to everybody. And, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, join us for a live experience, because especially in these times, live is always going to be better than recorded. And as they say on Monty Python, we have something a little different for you today. Normally, I will introduce a subject that's topical or that just comes into my mind by some synchronicity, and we take the show from there. And all guests are welcome to contribute with their questions and comments, or just some of the experiences that they've been through in the preceding week. But the subject today is a great subject. It's a subject that I get asked a lot about, and it is the Kabbalah. And there are many, it's got a lot of publicity traction because many people through the ages, well-known names, have been students of the Kabbalah in one way or another. A couple of familiar names to the show are Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. No surprises there because they studied many esoteric subjects. Probably you'll have heard of Madonna and her interest. She's got a film coming out shortly, and it'll be interesting to see if the Kabbalah is mentioned there. Names like Mick Jagger, Jerry Hall, Britney Spears, Demi Moore, and just looking down at my list, I'm sure I've left a couple out. But as I say, that's why you will get to hear a lot about Kabbalah. Now, the reason why we're having the show like this, I mean, I've made over 300 videos, and I think this is the first time I've actually invited a guest or two to actually talk about the subject matter, because I can say hand on heart, I have tried to research the Kabbalah, and I found it a very dense subject with words that I can't even read, let alone pronounce or remember how to spell. And I've just come to the conclusion that there's really, I feel, nothing useful that I could say on this subject, which is why I've invited a couple of people who have been studying it. And the first person to speak is going to be Sylvia. And I've known Sylvia for a number of years. She's got a very eclectic experience of alternative therapies and alternative thinking and philosophies and stuff. And when she wrote to me about Kabbalah, and I told her what the plan was, and I asked her if she'd, be prepared to share her views, I told her I know nothing about this subject, and she says, you know, Steve, more than you think you know. So that's a very enigmatic statement, and I am looking forward to being shocked and awed and thoroughly enlightened, because I'd like to know more, and it's a bit frustrating that I feel so much out of this particular loop. So Sylvia, on that note, please shock and awe us, and we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very privileged that I can share this. I'm not an expert, I'm merely a student. So whatever I say, it's coming from me and can be distorted by me. That's very important to know, because you could ask 1 million questions, scenarios, and Kabbalah will always have an answer. So I guess, may I start how I got interested in Kabbalah and how I started studying and where, because that's also important. So when I turned 40, about a long time ago, I kind of felt that my life was taking a different turn. I was an investment banker. I was a mum. I didn't want to work anymore, and I kind of came across this book in a charity shop. It was Kabbalah, Essential Kabbalah by Maggie Whitehouse. So Maggie is, I believe, I don't know who she was, but I loved the book. It intrigued me. So I Googled it, obviously, and I had heard about Madonna, the red string. And then I found out that the easiest way to study Kabbalah, the only way to study Kabbalah is a part of a group. And the group was actually near Oxford Street. It was with the Kabbalah Center. That's the center that had a lot of bad publicity. That's where Madonna was associated with. So I went on an introduction evening, and that's it. That the rest of history, as they say. Because I had depression previously, and I had seen doctors, and it's such an amazing experience to have a doctor in a room with you, and you can talk about anything and discuss anything you want. But every time after a session, I felt no, that's not it. I didn't know what I didn't know. I knew something was missing. So when I went to that lecture or introduction evening, there was one thing that was said that stayed with me to this day, and the teacher said, so what part of an atom is actually physical? What part of an atom you can see, taste, touch, see through the microscope? And it is 1%, right? So she said, this reality that we're seeing, that's actually 1% of what there is. So if you're seeing this chair, this table, that's 1%. 99% is something that we cannot experience with our senses. And as there are laws governing the physicality, so if you look out of the window of the 10th floor building, it doesn't matter whether you are a good person or a bad person. If you fall off, the result would be the same. So that's the law of gravity that governs the physicality, and there are laws governing the 99%. So I guess Kabbalah deals with the 99%. That's a very secular answer, I guess. But a very important thing to stress is that Kabbalah is not a religion. It's not a cult. It's not Madonna. It's not, you can be, so if you are a Christian, I was born in Poland, raised Roman Catholic, you are going to be a better Christian. If you're a Muslim, you're going to be a better Muslim. If you don't believe in God of any sort, you're going to be a better person. So one of the, I guess, what also spoke to me was some ancient sage was asked, if you had to stand on one leg and quickly say what Kabbalah is, what would you say? So give a very quick overview. And he said, love your neighbor as yourself. The rest of his commentary. So, and also, and that, can I tell you another story? Because I guess the Kabbalah is passed from generations to the generation. And it was originally an oral tradition. So all these beautiful stories, metaphors, are still so very much alive today. So, that meeting was finished with this story, and the story was that a young student is looking for a Kabbalah teacher, and he found one, and he thought, oh, I'm going to test this guy. How good is he? And he thought, I'm going to have a butterfly in my hand, and I'm going to see this sage, this wise person. I'm going to ask him, what have I got in my hand? And if he says butterfly, I'm going to ask, is it dead? Or is it alive? I'm going to have the butterfly alive. And when he says it's alive, I'm going to crush it. And when he says it's dead, I'm going to release the butterfly, and we'll see what happens. So off he goes, see the sage, and he says, I've got something in my hand. What is it? And the sage said, oh, it's a butterfly. Is it dead or is it alive? And the sage answered, it's in your hand. So that took my breath away, and literally there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories like this that speak on another level. I guess they speak to the 99%. And every single question I've ever had, every single dilemma I've ever had, it was answered by my teachers, by just studying with a group. It's very much about the energy, the 99%, the invisible part of an atom is energy, and that's what Kabbalah deals with, energy. And of course, all those years ago, hundreds and thousands and I don't know what, a lot of years ago, no one knew about energy. So energy was expressed in a different way, as angels, for example, that could be understood as energy. And Kabbalah says, behind every blade of grass, there is an angel stroking to grow. And if we really could see the reality as it is, if we could see the 100%, we would die of fright. There's so much going on. So that speaks to me also. So what I've said is my personal experience. And I guess those words that you were reading that were difficult to pronounce and you had no idea what it means, they are energy. They are a representation of above. So as above, so below. And how I understand it, there is an infinite amount of levels on which we can understand something. Infinite. So I guess as I move through the levels, I get a different understanding, wider understanding. So imagine being in a glass elevator, and if you press 1, that's what you see, and then you press 10, so you got a bigger picture, and then you press 200, you see curvature of the earth. Your understanding totally changes. So I guess that's what's with Kabbalah. There are rituals, but again, no one is forced to follow or practice anything in particular. It's appropriate to how you feel, and it's appropriate to the level of understanding that you're at. And as your understanding increases, certain things make sense to be doing, and certain things just fall off. It just doesn't make sense to be doing those things. Yes. So does that clarify things or confuses things, Steve?
I think it makes it more intriguing, because you've dropped a few little things out there that we probably all want to know more about. If I could just make a couple of comments, they might turn into questions. I particularly like the way you said, if you're looking at an atom is like 1%, and you're missing the other 99%. Well, the first book that I wrote, it was called Play Magic Golf. So it was a very different kind of golf book, and it was about the mind, really. And I actually talked about this. I said, everything is space. There are bits of pieces. A body is largely space, and it's the space where the interesting stuff happens. And I could, I think I even mentioned quantum theory, but a professor of Oxford in quantum physics, I remember watching a documentary presented by her, and she said all the matter of the universe could be placed on one thumbnail, because that's the only bit that actually exists. The rest is just nothing. So it's probably even more than 99%, the space. Mm-hmm. So, and I've always felt that it's that space where the magic happens, where the things happen that we can't explain. So, so you've been studying this, and you've stressed that probably the only way to learn is in a group, and I think that's probably the only way to learn anything, quite frankly. Well, we would be lost without online training courses and stuff, wouldn't we? But there's no mm-hmm. substitute for sharing questions and ideas with other people, and that's the way that people learn, really. It's more interesting that way. So yeah.
Can I just add something? When you listed all the people that had studied Kabbalah, Isaac Newton was one of them. His copy of the Zohar is the sacred text of Kabbalah. It's a commentary on the Bible. So Torah is the book of laws. It's a very literal description of Zohar is kind of translation, deeper meaning of what Torah is saying. And in the Zohar, which is 2,000 years old, I think, it already says in it that the earth is round and it's got 7 continents separated by water. So it's actually an amazing text that's got, again, can be one sentence can be understood on many different levels, depending on what sort of level of understanding you are at, a level of consciousness. And so originally, Kabbalah wasn't allowed to be studied but other than by men over 40, married men over 40, because it was dangerous. But at some certain point, I think it was in the 60s or even earlier, Rav Ashlag said that now it's time for Kabbalah to be revealed for everyone, because this is for everyone. It's not for chosen few. Everyone should be able to have access to this knowledge. So we call it wisdom, really. And again, there's a huge controversy with whom to study, because there are lots of splitting up and different fraction. But so you have to make your own decisions and just look for the good in people, because nobody's perfect. There's going to be flaws behind every organization, every person, I guess. So you just have to follow your heart and see what makes sense. And part of the Kabbalah is sharing. So sharing your time, sharing, volunteering is massive. So actually, and that's another thing that's very interesting. I'm sure you have mentioned it. So say you're struggling with something, seeing, for example, someone really annoys you because they are always late. Well, Kabbalah is saying you can only see what is in yourself. So you have to look in your life where you are late, the areas that you are late. So it may not necessarily be late physically, but you could be late with some sort of understanding. And if you correct this in yourself, suddenly this person will stop being late. So it's always looking back at myself and and no judgment. So evil talk, it's called evil speech. So gossiping, talking badly about people, that's something that be avoided at all costs. So all these little things really appeared to me.
Well, thank you, Sylvia. And once again, Carl Jung must be listening from above, because this was a bit of a synchronicity, because we talked about this very thing on our show last week when we were talking about the shadow self, which was a concept introduced by Carl Jung. And I actually gave exactly the same example. You know, if somebody irritates you because they're always late for everything, you've just got to look in the mirror, and that will explain where your irritation is coming from. So anyway, now what about other people? What do you think? Sylvia has to hop off onto another webinar shortly, but
I've got another 15 minutes or so.
Okay, well, stay with us then. But if does anybody have a burning comment or question at the moment, please?
I don't see any hands raised.
We don't see any hands raised. So the other thing that I didn't know is that Sylvia's origins were from Poland. And our next speaker, who many of you know, is Greg, who we know is from Poland. So it seems like the whole show is being hijacked, but that doesn't matter because the Polish people are friends of ours, and they're always well worth listening to. And especially the next man, who we don't see very much of him now because he's busy in the world of football, and he used to live in London, and hopefully he will again. But at the moment, he's seems to be based in the whole world. But at the moment, I think speaking from Poland. So, Greg, you again have definitely given me strong nudges about Kabbalah, and I've learned to trust your judgment. So if you say something's helpful or important, then I'm all ears, and I'm sure the rest of the group are as well. So Greg, thanks for agreeing to talk. Go for it.
See, thanks for those words, and I can say that we're in good hands with all these people. And yes, you know, Sylvia said that, you know, so much stuff about Kabbalah that I would say. So there is not much I can add, but I will try. I can give you my personal experience with Kabbalah and how did I find it, or maybe it found me. I was searching, you know, for answers, and maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I said to myself that I will not die before I will find those answers, and I started to search for it everywhere I could, talking to people I knew and I know loads of people, and I started asking them and telling them my own weird kind of defying logic experiences, and this is what I was searching, the answers for those experiences that I had in my life. Everybody I was asking, they tried to give me answers, but I didn't feel it. I knew it was not that. And same as Sylvia, I was raised as a Catholic. Those answers were not there. And you know, I was working as a chauffeur for many years in London. And at some point, I had this client in my car, and I was driving him for a week. He was a billionaire from the US. On the last day in my car, he had his client with him, and they started talking about Kabbalah. And I knew just a little something about Kabbalah from a friend of mine who gave me this red string, but I did not believe in this because I did not believe in that person who gave me the string. So I was not even going deep into it. And I asked this guy, I said to him, I am searching for some deep answers, and I know that Kabbalah is trying to give those answers for those questions, and that was all I said to him. And he said to me, okay, I'm going to go back to New York tomorrow. I'm going to think which book will be good for you, and I'm going to send you the book. Which he did. So a couple of months later, the book arrived. It was called The Power of Kabbalah. And I've read it, and the answer for my questions that I was trying to find for many years, actually, was maybe on the 15th page or 20th page of this book. It's clearly said and described how is it working and who had it before me. And then I thought, oh my God, that there must be something in it, you know. So obviously I finished the book. When I met the guy, they connected me to Sylvia probably know the guy, to Meir in Kabbalah Center. So I had my introduction with him, and then he said, Greg, if you want, we're starting Kabbalah 1 classes, which is a kind of a course which takes you into Kabbalah, explain you what it is. It was starting literally the next week, the following week. I said, yes, I'm all into it. I know there is something in this, so I want to study more. And I started studying Kabbalah then. 5 courses, so from Kabbalah 1 to Kabbalah 5. Really amazing experience. Energy, because I could tell what Sylvia just said, so I will avoid that. The energy in the center, that there is something different, there is something special. Each time you are there, you can feel it. And each time I was not going there for my classes because I had to work. And then I thought, oh my God, I think I know it. I don't need to go there again. And then I went there again. And the energy was again the same, so strong. Telling me, I was just realizing then that it was just my ego telling me. Because my ego, don't go there. You don't need to. You know everything by now. So it was a difficult experience. Anytime I can go, I would. I definitely recommend Kabbalah to anyone. As Sylvia said, you know, it is absolutely open to anyone. People of faith, scholars, atheists as well. Kabbalah for me is a wisdom. It's not a religion, as they said. It's just a set of technologies and tools you can use to improve your life and lives of people around you. It focuses on unconditional sharing, unconditional love, which I understood in those classes, and I applied it. And I think that the biggest strength that unconditional love gives you when you try to love people that you hate, people that you dislike really. So try to do that. Try to get yourself out of the comfort zone, out of your ego, to battle your ego. Kabbalah is also telling a lot about the ego. And that gave me a lot understanding in that aspect. Together with you, Steve, actually, because you focus on ego as well. Yes, so the Zohar, you said it. It's a beautiful thing I can truly and fully recommend to anyone, and I did so. And whoever went to the classes or read the books, seen some change in that person or in himself or herself, and now is into it. So there is definitely something really special and magical in Kabbalah. And if you want to experience it, if you want to develop yourself more, just go and do it. You can go to a center. You can read those books, and I can recommend some beautiful books to you.
Well, thank you, Greg. And you say your experiences are very positive and very similar to the ones that Sylvia recounted. Now, I just wonder, without giving any secrets away, can you give us an example in your life, something practical that we can sort of get our hands around that has helped you through a situation? Is there anything that comes to mind?
The thing that I said, loving, unconditional people, but especially people that that you dislike and try to love them. That just gives you different energy when you meet that person. The other thing is proactive formula. And this is a great tool that Kabbalah gives to their students. And that proactive formula is, or you can activate it when there is a negative situation arising in front of you. Normally you would react in a certain way, a way that is pre-programmed in you, which is your ego. The formula saying to pause, to reflect. Would you be aggressive or passive? Would your ego be passive or aggressive? Ask for help from above and and once it's done, then your ego system is changed. So that's one of the things, and this is a situation in life.
Okay, Greg, I've just got one more question to ask you, but this is just kind of a heads up to the other people on the call. Please, I really would like to hear what you think. And again, I think we've probably got some questions here. So anyway, my final question for them, and by the way, just address your questions, and we'll get Greg and Sylvia both to give their take on it. But just one final question from me. You will know that I guess I shouldn't have any prejudices and biases, but I'm a human being and I'm not a robot. So I guess this is work in progress for me. But one of these prejudices and biases is that I don't like anything that's like a recipe, a cooking recipe. If I make a cake, which I can't remember the last time I did, whether I've ever done it, but I would just like to go into the kitchen and find stuff and mix it all in a bowl and throw it in the oven and turn it on to a nice round lucky number and see what happens. And with the various therapies that I've learned over the years, I found that the best results come when you start experimenting and doing things that resonate with you. So you stick to the truth of whatever you've been taught, but you're free to experiment. Now, how does that apply in Kabbalah? I mean, is it a very ritualistic thing, or a very precise sort of...
Can I answer that, Steve?
Of course you can, yes.
So I think what also attracted me to Kabbalah is that from the very first moment I was told, do not trust, do not take anything for granted, do not believe anything, test it, do not. And that, I love that, because that's exactly what I did. So yes, there is a formula, but it's also test it and see what happens. That it's given, here is what you can do when there's on an obstacle, rather than reacting and noticing what happens. So for example, it's got, again, this thing as above, so below. Let's look at the light bulb. How does the light bulb work? There is a plus and there is a minus, but if they could meet immediately, there'll be massive spark and big darkness, right? The bulb will blow up. So there is a filament that pushes away. So there's a restriction. So when you have and again, it's such a beautiful thing to apply. In how I understood it, I'm walking around and I really want a chocolate. I'm dying to have a chocolate. So that's that. I want to take. So if I give in to this, I have this amazing fulfillment for maybe 5 seconds. And then what happens afterwards? I'm forever, why did I do it? Or for crying out loud, right? But if I push it back, that desire, so again, applying this formula, if you like, what happens then? Well, then there was a struggle initially, but then there's an amazing fulfillment that I was able to resist it, and now I'm feeling great. So that's just an example how this formula can be applied in any situation. So again, people from all walks of life, education, come and join. So it was made palatable for everyone. And again, it depends on your level of understanding that you can apply it in different ways, I guess.
Okay, thanks, Sylvia. And Greg, does that resonate with you, or do you have a slightly different take on that?
No, 100%. This is exactly right. And so what Sylvia said, and that stuck in my head. And now I started using that with my clients, saying that, don't believe what I'm saying. Just go and test it yourself and then tell me.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, what do other people think here? What do you think of what you've heard so far? Okay. I always like to say on these shows, I don't like the sound of my own voice, and I'd much rather listen to other people. And we're going to wrap up in a minute anyway. I do, actually, I'm burning to ask quite a few questions, but I'll just limit myself. The first one is a practical one. I mean, you've kind of given us a teaser, and I think we all want to know a bit more. So where would we start? I mean, I made a note that while you were talking, Greg, you got this book sent to you called The Power of Kabbalah. And Sylvia mentioned a book that she read, and I didn't have time to write that one down. So could I ask each of you now the same question? If we want to know more about this, what do you recommend? Where's the best place to start? Bearing in mind that we're living in the time of COVID, and probably it's not possible to go to meetings anymore. I don't know, every place seems to be different at the moment. But where would we start? And could I ask you first, Sylvia, please?
I can't believe you've asked this question, because I just got an email today that they're starting, so everything is voluntary based, and they're starting a free course, Kabbalah 1, that's the one that Greg and I went on originally, and it's free. I forwarded you the email. It's going to be online, I guess, to start with, but again, this is both Greg and I, this is important to know. We learn Kabbalah through Kabbalah Center. This is the organization that's been heavily criticized. This is where Madonna and all these celebrities, that it's a celebrity, that all they want is money from celebrities. So you need to bear that in mind, because there are other places like this Maggie Whitehouse, for example, that wrote a book of Kabbalah. She's criticizing Kabbalah Center very seriously. So you need to be aware of where you're starting the journey, but this is just the most approachable way, easiest way to start studying it. And Kabbalah 1 is written by Yehuda Berg, and that's the first book that I would definitely recommend. The book I mentioned is a 23 massive volume of Zohar that is not really to be read. It's a mystical book. You can't really, but this is the thing. What I wanted was a proof, a solid proof, a miracle. I wanted a miracle. And Zohar is sacred book, and again, what in Kabbalah it says, if you have a wish and it's granted, that will take your free will away, your free will to make up your own mind. So it's never going to happen that way. So I was, at the beginning of my studies, I remember I was on holidays and I was scanning the Zohar, just looking at some texts, because I wanted something for myself. I wanted a new career. And there's an English commentary on it, and I was reading and I thought, why am I doing this piece? It said about children, saving the children. And I looked to the right, and there was a boat full of children struck. There was a storm coming, and the boat was literally going like that. And that, oh my gosh, that was just incredible. And then later on, I spoken to someone who was in charge of the boat, and he said, we nearly didn't make it. A miracle happened. We were able to get the boat to, honestly. So I guess when you do things for other people, so for example, you can meditate on healings, but it says that the healings will be so much more powerful if you do it rather than for yourself, for other people. You will eventually benefit, but the consciousness has to be to help others. I'm sorry, I'm going on and on and on, but as you can see, like, you can never exhaust this subject.
Well,
so yes, Kabbalah 1 is the first book, and there is a course, I think, starting next week. Tomorrow is a big holiday. So I forward you to the email how you can find out more.
Yeah, if you would, please. Thank you. And you know, many of the things that Greg and Sylvia have shared with us, they are things that we've talked about on previous shows without even knowing that they're also rooted in Kabbalah. So I guess it won't be any big surprise to us.
Steve, sorry, can I just say one more thing? Because I emailed you and I said, you know more than you think. And I said, hey, for example, I'm sure you've heard of Joshua ben Joseph. And do you know who I meant?
Nope.
Have you heard of Jesus Christ?
Yes, I know that name.
So he was one of the famous Kabbalists. His role was to pass the Kabbalah to the Gentile nations. That's why he was here. That was his job.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing that you mentioned is that, you know, when you do stuff for other people, it does tend to bounce back on you as well. I mean, I've had many experiences of that. And that's why you know, I can, well, this is only a small example, but every single person who emails me, they will get a personal reply from me. And I will give every email, you know, my thought. And some days I don't do anything really apart from answer emails. But it seems to, you know, I seem to profit in some ways. So, you know, I do it for pleasure. And I guess in a way I have a selfish attitude as well, because I just know that it's the right thing to do for other, perhaps more selfish reasons as well. But anyway, Greg, what about you? You mentioned your book, and you've heard what Sylvia had to say. You know, can you perhaps point us in any other direction, or do you think we've got enough for the moment?
Yes, I know. I could only say the same thing actually. So Kabbalah Center, I know they do the courses online. So if anybody is interested and want to dive deeper, that's a great place to start. And again, the book, The Power of Kabbalah, is just a great book to read, very easy read, and also for you to feel if you feel it or not. So that's the one. I've got another 2 books, but I will not tell them because they are for later. So The Power of Kabbalah, this is always what I do. When somebody asks me about the Kabbalah, I send them either to the center or I recommend that book.
I don't know whether you noticed, Greg, while you were talking, but a lady appeared on the right-hand side of you. Were you aware of that? Did other people
No,
see
there is
that?
nobody in the room, actually.
Did anybody else see that, or am I having even
Yeah,
more?
I did. I did.
No, I'm joking. No, that's Kasia.
Kasia, okay. All right.
She
well,
thought she would be invisible from my background, but she was.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much more than enough for today. So thank you all for watching. And for those of you who are watching on YouTube, please do subscribe to me, and then you'll get automatically notified of when I put more videos up there. There's been plenty to think about, and as I promised you at the beginning, this was going to be very different, and I believe that it has been. As always, I think we go away with more questions than answers, but wouldn't life be boring if we had answers to everything? So also, thank you, Greg and Sylvia, for sharing your time and your experiences in such a frank and open way, and for stimulating our interests and giving us a nudge, particularly in how we can find out more about this. So all things willing, I will be here next week at the same time, and I hope you will be as well. And please share the video with people who you think might be interested. And as always, I'm looking for ideas of an opening topic. Now, one that I've been asked about that might make the cut, I haven't decided, I never decide until the day. It might be bioresonance therapy, which is something that I haven't done a great amount. I've put a couple of videos out on that and maybe 1 or 2 blogs, but I probably get more questions now about that than almost anything else. And it's only a real fraction of the work that I do, but I may talk about that, but I'm looking for other ideas as well. So in the meantime, just remember, it's to occupy the space. It's the space around us that's the most important thing. And don't worry about bumping into chairs and other people. Just have the space and the vibrations that are transmitted from the universe through you and to everywhere else as well. But the main thing is enjoy your week, keep safe, and maybe try and help somebody, or at least smile at strangers. And as I said before, if you want to get a seat on the tube, smile broadly to everybody around you and you'll get plenty of space. Okay, until next week, goodbye.